Well, hello, my friends, and welcome back to another episode of the Homebrew Happy Hour. This is the show where we supply the answers to your homebrewing questions and discuss all things related to craft beer. And if you, my friends, have a question you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, you could go to homebrewhappyhour.com and click on that submit a question link at the top of the page. You could email Joshua at homebrewhappyhour.com because it goes to the same gosh darn place, my friends. But even better, call it in to the hotline 325-305-6107. Leave a message after the beep, or don't, whatever you want to do. You're an adult. Joshua, I'm having such a hard time getting people to leave voicemails. They don't like hearing the sound of their own voice. It's terrible. But actually, real quick, I do this all the time. I start digressing before the show even really starts, and people are going to think now, because we have the same name, that I'm talking to myself.
It's gonna be confusing.
Yeah, most people are audio only. They don't have the visuals of youtube.com/homebrew happy hour on their screen. They're like, what? Josh is losing it, man. He's going. My friends, I am so excited for this week's episode because I am joined by Joshua Lord, and I have stuff written down for you. Let me say it. Josh is a Georgia native who turned his personal search for the perfect Saison into a mission to support the entire Atlanta area brewing community. He started homebrewing back in 2015, and today he is the owner of the Brew Depot in Alpharetta, Georgia. Josh, great name, and thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, of course, Josh. I appreciate it. And if it gets confusing, for the first 18 years of my life, no one called me Josh. They called me by my last name. So you're more than welcome to call me Lord, your Lord, my Lord. That's perfectly fine.
I love that. Dude, what a great last name. I grew up with the first and last name and a lateral lisp. So I didn't want to, I wanted to go by Joe. I was like, hey, little boy, what's your name? I'd be like, Joshua Staving. No, I hated it. If I had a last name like Lord, dude, I played Warcraft all the time. Yes, my Lord. Golly. Anyways, dude, so let me set the stage real quick before we really get in. HomebrewCon 2026, and we will definitely talk about it. But the doors open on day one. I think it was day one. No, it was day two when we met, because I don't think I did the expo floor besides club night stuff on day one. But yeah. Show floor opens. I wasn't going to a seminar, and I saw the line building up, and I was like, whoa, people really want to get on this expo floor. And the doors open, and everyone runs to the more beer table. like they had all, and I love the more beer guys. I say that on here all the time. They're fantastic dudes. Sure. They brought Bradley, who's one of my favorite people on as a personality and online creator, the portly gentleman, for those who are wondering. He's losing weight, though. He's not even that portly anymore. But anyways, I'm digressing again. So y'all are the first booth there. I'm walking in, and all those people there, and I was like, I'll just take my time. And I ended up talking to you dudes for like half an hour. So my apologies, first off, for taking all y'all's time and maybe running away potential customers. But I had such a good time learning about you guys, how you're kind of crafting your niche in an already hyper niche kind of hobby. And just y'all's perspective is just refreshing. Like young guys at a booth, y'all were showing at the time Goonies on a TV y'all brought and had cool swag. But oh yeah, mine's backwards. But the coolest piece of gear I got this year from HomebrewCon is y'all's Beer Never Die hats. And you're wearing it right now on the screen, but the coolest swag. But anyway, let's start off, though, by talking about your personal history as a home brewer. Like, what got you into brewing, much less bit by the bug to continue brewing, and then be as crazy as I want to run a supply shop? How did that all begin?
Yeah. So it sort of started when I was in undergrad. Met a guy named Keith, who is still to this day my best friend, the godfather of my kids. His dad was the dean of the medical school at the undergrad institution that we went to. And his best friend, they homebrewed together. His best friend has a PhD in yeast genetics.
Oh, wow.
So they were like, the only fun thing that we actually do with our degree is fermentation. So that was sort of my first introduction into homebrewing. I would go over on a Sunday morning, and they would have beer church, and they would be brewing, but it was, stovetop brewing, but they were really just brewing high gravity beers with the intention to push the limits on the cultures that they had. And it was nothing was under 10% alcohol. So that was my first introduction into homebrewing. And then I moved to Atlanta, went to grad school at Georgia Tech, and was in an apartment starting to experience the craft beer culture. At that time, the big one here in Atlanta was Sweetwater, when they were still independent and relatively regionally small. And so the combination of having homebrewed a little bit in undergrad, going to grad school, that sort of was the start. And then as I was tasting a lot of beers, i.e., like Boulevard Tank 7, which is still my desert island beer, um, could not find any Saisons in the local market. And so I was like, well, I've brewed a little bit, I guess I could say. And I'm just I want to start brewing, and I want to brew beer that I can't find in the market. So started with a 1 gallon all grain kit from Brooklyn Brew Shop. I bought it at like my local liquor store. They had a couple of kits there, thinking that, read the instructions, like, oh man, this is going to be a piece of cake. 6 hours later, maybe netted half a gallon, had no idea what I was doing. And then like 2 weeks later, beer tasted like basically liquefied cardboard. Um, so I'm sitting there, I'm like, man, that was 6 hours for, roughly 3 to 4 bottles of beer that taste awful. But my buddy Keith and I, we were like looking at each other and we're like, well, there's got to be a reason it tastes like this. Like we clearly did something wrong. So then started going down the rabbit hole of Google and trying to understand, why does it taste like cardboard? Just sort of came to determine that, yeah, we didn't hit our target volume, but we did hit our target ABV. So something went wrong, but also something wasn't horribly wrong. But we kind of determined that it was packaging because the beer was oxidized. So the worst thing, but also the best thing that could have happened is we found a problem, we diagnosed the problem, and, and we decided, we are going to try to figure this out the next batch. And it's interesting. The next batch wasn't that great either, but it was better than the last batch. And we didn't have an oxidation problem. So you constantly, for the, that first better part of a year of brewing, we sort of fixed the problems that we found, had it got exposed to new problems, fixed those problems, and we just got a little bit better over time. We were doing this kind of out of my apartment off of North Avenue. We went from the 1 gallon all grain, did maybe 3 batches of that, and we're like, man, this is not worth it. We need to start doing like 5 gallons. So then we kind of went to stovetop brewing extract with steeping grains. And then, still doing bottling and everything. And then a bunch of our other friends started getting really interested in what we were doing. At that kind of juncture, I then bought my first house. So I'm still in grad school, but now I'm a homeowner. I bought the house so that I could brew more. So then invested in a propane burner, like a 8 gallon stainless steel Bayou Classic kettle. Did the brew in the bag, all grain, 5 gallon batches. But we were all like young professionals, all either in grad school or in our first job. So the only time that we really had to brew was like Friday nights at like 8 p.m.
Oh, man.
So I can remember us all having headlights on our head. We had the floodlights on my house.
Yeah.
And it would be like 1 a.m. and we're finally, filling the fermenter up with the wort. And no one wants to clean because it's freaking 1 a.m. and we've been drinking because it's Friday. So, that was always a fun process. And then we gradually built up kind of a following. I mean, we had roughly 15 to 20 guys that would come over for these monthly brew days. The way that it worked is we were sort of a club, but we were more of a collective because none of us had any money, but we all wanted to brew beer and hang out. So everybody just like shared ownership of all the equipment. So anybody could come to my house and brew if they wanted to at any point in time. But we just had a monthly meetup where we all brewed together and then we divided the beer out. And then, the history is, I think I've mentioned this when we were talking at HomebrewCon, but I've done every type of brewing for beer. And then the next big one was we built our own 3-tiered gravity system where We had a hot liquor tank at the top. We had an igloo mash tun with a false bottom and that second tier, and then we had our boil kettle on the ground on a propane burner, and then eventually got a pump that changed everything. Our efficiency went wild. We didn't know what we were doing with ourselves. And now, we before I took over the shop, my system, I have a Brew Magic Safeco
Those
system,
are
old school.
yes, yeah.
It's still running. It's still my favorite system that I've ever brewed on. But we carry a lot of Blickman stuff here in the shop. So we have 2 top tier systems. And then we got a couple of all in one. So still brew on like a Grainfather. And then we have the very economical Digiboil that we sort of have for our low, like our guys who are just getting into brewing and may not have a ton of capital to drop on an all-in-one like 5-gallon SS or Spike.
Are you still paying premium prices for imported malt or settling for standard domestics to save a buck? You don't have to choose anymore. Let me tell you, friends, about Viking Malt. They are the world's largest producer of specialty malt using pristine, non-GMO Northern European barley. And because it's directly imported, you get pro-level, award-winning malt at standard domestic pricing. But here's where it gets really cool for homebrewers. Introducing their new Viking 3G Extra Pale Base Malt. It is genuinely innovative. It's a no-lots malt, meaning it's bred without the enzymes that cause beer to stale, so your kegs and bottles stay fresh way longer. Plus, it has 60% less of the stuff that causes DMS. That means cleaner beer, and you can actually shorten your boil times, saving you energy and time on your brew day. It's highly modified, extra light, and perfect for lagers or any hop-forward ale. Upgrade your next brew day with Viking 3G Extra Pale. Yeah, dude, and that's a testament, though, to I say this all the time on the show. It is the best time ever to be alive as a home brewer because of options and, like you said, like the Digiboil or like the OG Mash and Boil. They're tea kettles, right? I guess, though, if I'm arguing semantics, my Grainfather is technically just a big tea kettle, but I digress. I love, like for what you were saying, how the pump changed everything for efficiency. For the same here, when I went to electric brewing, but specifically electric all-in-one, because the company I was with before for a long time, and we've talked about it on the show floor, Keg Connection, I was going to say rest in peace. They're still operating from the dudes that run Keg Outlets. So guys, if you're watching, go to kegconnection.com. I don't have a promo code for you, but they're still good people. I love who ended up taking over the website. But, it's dead for me. Not to me, but for me. I'm digressing again. The guys who run Keg Connection or ran Keg Connection brew on 3-vessel Herms. And don't get me wrong, that is incredible brewing, right? Like the kind of control you have over every step or whatever. But the real estate it takes up in a garage, my wife's already pissed for how much space I take up, period. Like just existing on the bed, but much less our garage. So when I switched to a Grainfather G40, which I think it's been 5 years now, game changer, dude. Like electric brewing, first off, I don't have to worry about whatever it is you have to worry about with propane. Like, is there enough ventilation and all,
Yeah.
but yeah, like and recirculation too. Who would have thought that would improve your efficiency? Like just
Right.
But to the original point though, there's nothing wrong with people cooler brewing without any electric components. The stovetop, you and your peers that were working the booth with you, the buddies, your general manager, and then the head of draft. I forget his name already. Victor. I was just say Vincent. Victor. Thank you. Those dudes, all of y'all had this like just shared passion of just, hey, however you're brewing, we're happy you're brewing. Like that was something I took away from you guys when y'all were talking to people. It wasn't like gatekeeping, right? And I don't see that a ton. The hobby, I don't see it a lot, but when I do, it bothers me because I'm like, people even say, and you're a shop owner, so I know it would go against your best interest to agree with this statement, which is not a statement I agree with, but the people will say, extract brewing's not real brewing. Or guys, they're making beer. Be happy. Like that's a good thing that the hobby is continuing, whether it's from full extract, partial mash extract, all grain, whatever. You're making beer, you're being happy. Hopefully it's bringing you into a community, yada, yada, yada. But that's cool. So
Yep.
you're you go through the process telling us how, you started brewing this or that. Was the Brew Depot, because I know it existed before you acquired it, was that your local shop
Right.
during
Yeah.
this whole process?
It was my local shop for, once I went to all grain, brew in a bag, 5 gallon, I was going to the Brew Depot at least twice a month. Um, so I've been here shopping here for about 10 years, and have seen the peak of what a local homebrew supply store could be, but then also have witnessed what the lowest point before shutting down it could be.
Yeah.
Um, and the reality is, I can remember one time, maybe 4-ish years ago. So right at the end of the pandemic, I remember brewing with some buddies, and we were sharing some Cascade Barrel House bombers, rest in peace, out of Portland, Oregon. And we were talking, and they were like, "So why did we sub Dingemans Belgian pills for this other Pilsner that we were going to get?" And I was like, well, we didn't have an option.
Yeah.
They didn't have what we normally get for this recipe. And that had sort of become a commonplace. And I think that's true for a lot of the homebrew supply stores at that time.
Yep.
The supply chain, shipping cost, managing a network of vendors just becomes too much for a local small business to do when your only customer base are those people walking through your door.
Yep.
So it got to the point where near the end of the previous owner's run, I was still supporting. I never ordered online, but I didn't come here with a recipe. It was, hey, tell me what you got in stock, and then I'll build a recipe. That was kind of what I was doing for the better part of like a year and a half until I took it over. I knew that when we took it over, that was not going to be the case. There was a lot of things that I wanted to change when we took it over. One of those was I never wanted to be out of anything. We're not batting 1,000 on that. It is a very difficult thing to do,
Yeah.
particularly when you grow and you start trying to expand your customer base to online. So we're still figuring that out. But I think, we're doing pretty good. We're about, batting 750, which
Hey.
will make us maybe the best baseball player in the
I was
history
gonna
of the
say
game.
that's all stars every year, man. What are you talking? Yeah, 750 is incredible.
Yeah. Yeah.
So with rewind just a little bit to was the acquisition, the purchase of the shop a passion project, or was it a market opportunity? I guess let's start with the base question. What is the homebrewing scene like in Alpharetta, the greater Atlanta area? Because I can tell you, most people assume Austin. Oh, keep Austin weird. It's people who support mom and pop and this culture of like do-it-yourself go-getters. We just had our very last homebrew shop close a couple days ago, or last weekend rather. There is zero local shops in the greater Austin area. You have to go to San Antonio, which is a proper 60 plus miles away to go to a shop. So it's like I am always interested in how certain pockets of the country seem to be exploding, and some seem to be stagnant, and some seem to be dying. What's the scene like there, and what led you to just like, hey, I'm going to run the Brew Depot?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. So fortunately for the Brew Depot, we're in North Atlanta. So we're not in Atlanta proper. We're in a suburb of Alpharetta, right off a major highway, Georgia State Highway 400, that connects like downtown Atlanta to like North Georgia, all the northern suburbs. So, and we're right off that highway. So from a location standpoint, there is certainly a customer base here in Alpharetta, and Roswell, which are two basically budding cities right up against each other that are brewing. But are fortunately for us, because of Atlanta's solution to traffic is just building more roads and more lanes. So it is relatively easy to get in your car and get here compared to other, municipal urban areas.
Yeah.
Our customer base is pretty wide. It goes all the way up to like the Georgia, North Carolina, Tennessee line.
Oh, wow.
So that's a lot of people come on Saturdays. Athens, Georgia, which is where the University of Georgia is about an hour. If there's a lot of traffic, an hour and a half away. The last local shop there closed down a few years ago. So now on Saturdays, people are making the trek, assuming that Georgia is not playing. They're making the trek over to our shop. And then there's actually a really budding kind of community around beer in Atlanta proper with a lot of minority groups, whether that's racial minorities or how they identify, gender minorities. There's a really growing populace of that kind of in the proper Atlanta, South Atlanta area, where they're connecting community and culture to beer or wine. And it's not just, appreciating it, it's actually brewing it. So we sponsored a conference, a few weeks ago, actually, called Crafted for Action. It's really designed about, having minority voices, connecting them with this beverage industry. And there was a homebrew competition that we were the judges for. And it was so interesting to see this diversity that normally, and that data shows it, that most home brewers are, old white guys that have a decent income.
Yeah.
So that's been a really interesting. And so for us, it's trying to make sure that people know that even though we're at Alpharetta, we can still be your shop. So we have, maybe 4 or 5 homebrew clubs that are pretty big that we sort of service. One of them meets here at the shop every month. They have their meetings here. We give them that outlet. We sponsor almost every single homebrew competition that we possibly can, and just support in any way we can. I think when you look at the homebrewing scene here in Atlanta, and particularly Alpharetta, it's never really changed. There's been a floor, but it hasn't dipped below that floor. So there is a consistent group of homebrewers that had continued to brew over the last 10 years through the pandemic. That has, when you asked like, why did I, decide to buy it? It was partly passion, but it was also after I saw the tax returns from the previous owner. I was like, okay, the last 5 years, whether he's committing, fraud, he's had a relatively consistent income that, that I think could be built upon as we put a little bit more energy into it. And so for us, it's really been taking that customer base that has been in existence for a long time, that allows us to pay rent, that allows us to, pay our utilities, that allows me to pay payroll, and to build upon that. So then we can start generating revenue that allows us to do even more cool stuff.
Yeah.
And so that's been what we've been trying to do, is to grow upon that customer base.
This episode is brought to you by Cellar Science. For years, homebrewers have been told they have to choose. Do you want the quality of liquid yeast or the convenience of dry? Well, Cellar Science flipped the script. They're proving that dry yeast isn't just a backup plan anymore, it's the upgrade. Cellar Science offers premium dry yeast that delivers higher cell counts than typical liquid pitches, meaning you get a stronger, healthier fermentation without the hassle. And the best part? You can direct pitch right into your wort, no starters, no waiting, just brewing. Whether you need their new West Coast strain for a classic American IPA or jungle for a massive fruity estery flavor, they've got your next batch covered. It's quality yeast that doesn't break the bank. Save time, save money, and brew better beer with Cellar Science. Dude, and I was so at HomebrewCon, I follow y'all. I'm like, I find them on Instagram and follow. That's like I'm 40 years old, so I don't know if that's what the young people do, but that's what I do. I'm like, okay, if they're on Instagram, follow. Yeah. And so, but going through, and I was like, oh my God, like how involved y'all are specifically in your hyper local region. Like y'all, I saw that conference that y'all had sponsored. Which, by the way, not this is not throwing shade at AHA. If anything, it's a compliment to both. The presentation, I don't know how involved y'all shop specifically was in like the assets, you know what I mean, like all the banners and everything. Dude, that was a legit looking conference. I was like, oh my god, like and the medals too. I saw the medals that they had made. I was like, oh lord, like that. I always joke about, like, we run competitions every year. The Kolsch Cup. This year's the first year we're not doing it for a while, but the Kolsch Cup, and then an alt beer competition called the Alt Pokal. And yeah, it's really just fraud to get people to send me free beer and like, oh yeah, you're the winner. But I do my best to be like professional in regards to the trophies and the medals, but I was blown away. I was like, because that was the first time that conference that you're talking about, not Crafted Culture, or what'd you call it? I'm sorry.
It's Craft for Action.
Yeah, Craft for Action. Like that was the first one ever done, or was this?
No, they've had it before. This was the first time that they've included a homebrew.
Gotcha.
Competition element. And I'm not going to take any credit. We did sponsor it. The winner, we had a care package for them. They won like a 15-gallon kettle and a bunch of like cryo centennial hops from Yakima Chief.
Yeah.
And all that kind of stuff. But I cannot take any credit for how that conference was organized and how they did it. It was amazing. I sort of, showed up. We brought our care package. I judged a bunch of blonde ales because that was the style that was everybody was competing in, and then got on a stage and talked about it for a bit. It was an amazing conference, and we are like literally right after we were already talking about how can we make the homebrew side of this even bigger, than it was this first time.
What are some of the challenges you see in getting new people? And I don't want to directly segue to HomebrewCon because what we will talk about that in its own little isolated pocket. But like I said, I'm 40. I'm with my family history. I'm probably 3/4 age. I'm not middle age. My family, I got 20 Christmases left tops. But anyway, I feel my kids are gonna love their new dad. It's okay. I feel like it's this perpetual challenge. I've been in the industry in one way or another for 18 years. And for early homebrew cons I'd go to, I am by far the young man because I was I was 23 years old or 24 at that time, the first homebrew con I ever went to. Even at homebrew con this year, there was a YouTube creator meetup thing that they hosted. I got to be a part of it by proxy, dude. It was like Golden Hive, Charlie's the Man, Brew Show, Trent, Homebrew for Live CH, and obviously Martin Keene from Brewlosophy. Hundreds and hundreds of people in line. And then I was at the table like, hi guys, I do videos. Anyway, not bitter about that at all. But that's where the young people were, and it was I think they said there was 1,100 total attendees. I'd bet you money less than 200 were under the age of 35. There wasn't a ton, and I don't know how to remedy that because I'm told, oh, young people just don't drink. Oh, they're healthier, this or that. From a business owner's perspective, with skin in the game of growing this hobby, what are some of the challenges you see, and how are you trying to mitigate those challenges of getting new, fresh people into homebrewing, but specifically the younger crowd?
Yeah, it's a great question. And just to like add a little bit, that was the challenge that we knew we were going to have in taking over a shop that had been around for so long. If I could, every wall in here would be painted black and we'd have a bunch of skeletons all over the place and we'd be playing death metal music. That's like my vibe.
Yeah.
And we do that sometimes. But I knew that if we did that, one, we're going to be even more niche.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
than we already are.
Yeah.
And then we were going to probably push that existing client base, away. So it's really an interesting fine line that you have to find with, being able to tailor to the people who have been brewing for years and years and years and kind of know exactly what they want. And they want to come to your shop and they have a hellish recipe that they're always going to use German pills from Weyermann, and if you don't have Weyermann German pills, you suck.
Yep.
But you also have to do it to where you give a reason for someone younger to look at their time and say, you know what, it's worth my time to invest in this, do this hobby. And so you have to figure out what is that like way to get them to do it. Biggest barriers of entry, in my opinion, is information. I think so many young people don't have nowhere to go when it comes to one, understanding how to brew. The other element is a lot of the local shops can be very difficult to kind of access based on they may not have an e-commerce platform. If the case of the Brew Depot before we took it over, no social media whatsoever. And if they did have a social media, their last post was 3 years ago. And it's just about Big Brew Day. And it's just a bunch of old guys around a kettle. And so trying to kind of piggyback, honestly, off of what's happened in the like local craft beer scene. We have a lot of great breweries here that have a lot of great graphic design, a great social media presence. So it was like sort of like standing on the shoulders of giants and saying, okay, we could apply this to homebrewing. And then the other part is cost. I mean, if you think to yourself, you're like, okay, if I want to do 5 gallons of grain or a batch, how much grain do I need to buy? How much is that going to be? How much is the ingredients going to cost me? And then you tell them, they're like, oh yeah, that kind of makes sense. Okay, yeah, I'll do it. And then we're like, okay, well, what kind of equipment do you have? Oh, I need special equipment for that. How much is that going to cost?
Yeah.
Well, it could, and so giving them kind of the range, which to your earlier point about us always being open to scale any recipe from whatever gallon size to whatever type of brewing, that's how we do it. And we start at the very basic and the most economically feasible for someone younger, all the way to, okay, yeah, you can buy this SS, all-in-one electric system. We're happy to get it for you and to sell it to you. I think that's part of it. The other thing that we've really done is I think what this younger generation, and I'm right at that cutoff. You said 35. I turned 36 this year, so I'm about to be on the older side. I think for us, it was making the younger generation of brewers or potential brewers having a closer proximity to what they're using. I think when you look at any brewer, no matter how old they are, part of the reason why they get into homebrewing is because they want to be close to that beer. Like, I want to have the control. I want to engineer. I want to be the one who's creating this. But oftentimes in the history of homebrewing, that kind of creation, that proximity, that kind of control really starts at the time that you heat up your strike water and you mill your grains in. Yeah. It doesn't start at the time of buying those ingredients. So, most of the time you're either going online and you're buying for more beer and you're getting, prepackaged, 1 pound increments of Weyermann German pills, or you're going to your local homebrew supply store and you're getting the same stuff. But if you have a question about that grain, or you have something that you want to know, and More Beer's customer service rep doesn't know, or the local shop that you buy it from doesn't know, the ability for you to get your answer is almost impossible because there's so many steps in that supply chain to get to finally who is responsible at Weyermann for malting that grain. and also it's like, hey, we're brewing here in, America, we're brewing in the United States. Why can't when like there is this sort of like push in some cases, in some products to buy local, to buy US made products, why does that not apply to grains? So what our thought is let's get as close to the farmer as possible. We already started to see a kind of a shift in the craft beer scene here in Atlanta, but a lot of breweries now shifting to local regional malt. So we were like, let's just see if we can do it. And so that was kind of what we've been doing for the last year with partnering with malt houses like Riverbend out of Asheville, where HomebrewCon was. And then the other one is Carolina Malt House outside of Charlotte, North Carolina. What that has allowed us to do is It's made us more familiar with the malt that we're carrying, but it's giving just a better story for brewers. And I think that is one thing that the younger brewer is going to appreciate.
Yeah.
They're going to appreciate knowing that there's only one person in between them and the malt house, and that person is me.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. And like you had told me that when we were there and showing me, because I thought it is interesting because that is now, we joked earlier about a niche within a niche, but it's like, but this is one of those kinds of niches where like, if people and at the end of the day, I always tell everyone, try to support your local supply shop. If you can't, I get it. Or if you don't have one, that's fine. Because also like, more beer, they're great people. They're not venture capitalist, AB InBev firm or whatever. But if you don't want more beer and you're not able to get what you need, or if you're looking for something more specific, like you had said, you come there and with the malt house that you just mentioned from Asheville, not Riverbend,
Riverbend, or Carolina.
Yeah. They like that. That is something where I think maybe all ages appreciate it, but me, the young man that I am, I love a good mom and pop storytelling. Do you know what I mean? Yep. Where that's what the sponsor of this show, like specifically Hops Direct, like they do such a good job of like talking about the Pewterball family who still operate this thing. And look here, 3 or 4 generations worth out in the farm working together. And like the storytelling really does a good job of driving home the point of craft behind craft. Like we talk about craft beer, this or that, man, it doesn't get much more artisan and craft than using like local stuff. And that's a good point that you made that's ringing with me about. You're right. Some people make a hoopla about, I'm American made or this or that. But I've never really thought about that in brewing at all. Like, I mean, hops, obviously, right? Like, my hops come from the Pacific Northwest. But I've never even the equipment I brew on, I'm 95% sure my G40, I know they're an Australian company. It had to be in China where it was made. I never looked on it.
Sure.
Which, again, at the end of the day, doesn't bother me. But,
Well, yeah, same here. But at the end, the other thing that's sort of now going with that is in the economic climate that we are in, and because we are so close to Riverbend and we're so close to Carolina, we actually don't get that shipped. We go pick it up.
Oh, wow. That's
because
cool.
My GM, Caleb, is actually going to be making a move to the Asheville area at the end of the year. So he's going up there like once a month already.
Dude.
And so he just takes his, Chevy Silverado, goes, pulls up to the loading dock at Riverbend, and we get a pallet. And it's just convenient for us, but it also means that we don't have to pass on that cost of shipping, which honestly, even if we were to get it shipped, it's way cheaper to get that shipped than it is to get Weyermann German pills. But what's happening now is because of, things that are going on in our economic climate, a sack of Riverbend Chesapeake Pilsner is now cheaper than a sack of Weyermann German pills.
No kidding.
So not only, and so talking about how does that craft malt sort of get to help younger generations come in, not only is there a great story, but it's also comes out to be cheaper for them as well. So it's sort of like a win-win for us. And, kind of going back, there has been this huge push on craft malt at the commercial scale as well. Partly because of wanting to be closer to the maltster, to the farmer, but also it's becoming cheaper for breweries to use it as well. And that's part of how we are also kind of appealing to the younger generation, because there are some amazing breweries here in the Southeast and all across the East Coast that are now using like craft malt for a lot of their beers. I mean, for us here in like the Atlanta area, there's a great brewery north of us called Notho. There's a great brewery south of us called Scepter. They're using pretty much exclusively Carolina malt. And then you go to Asheville, and if you went to Dissolver, which was right around the corner from HomebrewCon, they're like 95% Riverbend.
Wow.
So being able to, have this younger generation that is already drinking craft beer and appreciating that craft beer, and then you can tell them, yeah, you've been to Dissolver, you really like their beer. All of their malt is Riverbend. And we're like one of the only places that, home brewers can get it, at least shipped nationally, right? And so that's been a huge story for us. And we're going to continue building our portfolio of craft malt. Um, we're already trying to think about, okay, these two are the more regional local, but regional can mean anything. We can be east of the Mississippi. So let's look at all the craft malt that's available east of the Mississippi. Like the Seed out of New Jersey uses a craft malt house out of New Jersey. Let's contact them to see if there's any chance that we could just carry one of their varieties, right? And to complement everything else that we're doing. And then when we're marketing the craft malt that we're selling, it's like, hey, used by Dissolver or used by the Seed
Yeah.
or whatever,
Yeah.
I think it's just a better story. And it makes the home brewer who's already appreciating beer and is appreciating craft beer, it makes it kind of like a full on connected story from grain to eventually glass, which is our whole thing.
This episode is brought to you by brewersfriend.com. Brewing beer at home isn't just about ingredients, it is about precision. And that's where brewersfriend.com comes in. Whether you're dialing in your first recipe or perfecting your 100th, Brewer's Friend gives you the tools to brew with confidence. Their recipe builder, mash calculators, and water profile database helps take the guesswork out of the process so you can focus on what matters, making great beer. Brewer's Friend isn't just software, it's a community of passionate homebrewers sharing recipes, tips, and feedback. It's like having a homebrew club right in your pocket. Head over to brewersfriend.com today and take your homebrewing to the next level. Use promo code Happy Hour and get 25% off your premium membership. That's brewersfriend.com, because brewing better starts with better tools. It is. And yeah, in a way it injects the end user into the story, which is what something, appealing to that side of people usually is effective, where you're like, oh yeah, I'm part of this farm to table thing. And
Right.
I will confess, I asked you that question about the younger people. When people ask me that question at HomebrewCon, especially about like, well, what do you think, Joshua, to get the younger people? And it's not a cop-out answer. It's actually just a terribly selfish answer. I tell people all the time, because I've been hearing, of the 18 years I've been in the industry, at least 10 of them have been doom and gloom. I'm no stranger to the doom and gloom.
Yeah.
And it's not even,
Yeah.
it's not irrational doom and gloom. It's just an observational doom and gloom. But I tell people all the time, as long as I can get ingredients for me and my pop, I'm brewing, baby. I don't care if 10 million people are brewing or if 10 people are brewing. But the
Right.
non-joking answer for me is what I have found that works or has been effective. It's not even an effort. It's just a byproduct of creating a community that people want to be a part of. And so, like, my pop and I, we brew together. We don't have a traditional homebrew club. Our Patreon kind of acts as an online homebrew club. We call it the Trub Club. Don't judge me. I know it's Trub. Allegedly. I'm American, Josh. I say
Not
what.
a rhyme though.
Bro, yeah, and I'm actually considering putting umlauts on the U of Trub. When I say Trub Club, it's now going to be the Trub Club, but whatever. But creating the space of just being accessible and being willing to share information and collaborative with other people, I am, it's no shtick. Like I'm self-deprecating because it's funny, but I know when I don't know something, and I'm grateful that I've created a community online specifically where, oh my gosh, what should I do in this instance? And then I can text some of the best homebrewers on the planet that I know.
Sure.
And so, do you find ultimately, like with the events y'all have sponsored, and then I'll segue this too to HomebrewCon, where you got to see a national organization's community, do you find that
Right.
fostering community is ultimately the thing that will keep this hobby going?
Absolutely. I think part of that is sort of maybe really defining what community means. I think that's the first thing. I think for so long, it's community and culture are those words that people just kind of throw out. But what does it really mean for a homebrew community? Is that literally just people who are home brewing? Because that seems like that should be the definition. But at the end of the day, I think we need to kind of redefine it, because that community has been correlated with so many other variables and so many other like socioeconomic demographics. That we now have sort of created this like sub community that for someone on the outside, it's become really difficult or sort of unwelcoming for them to walk in. I mean, I saw it at the store here before we took it over. I mean, if you want to talk about a cold place,
Ugh.
I like it was like going to a small paint shop that was also doing prostate exams in the back. I mean, it was so cold. I mean,
Sounds great.
I don't, if hadn't been there, I would open the door and then I would walk out because, it was the wall colors were awful. It was the lighting was like ridiculous. There was no place to sit. There was no place to congregate. There was no educational material. And when you walked in, there was no one greeting you. Everybody, all the employees would just be in the back, and then they would hear the ding on the door opening, and then they would come out. And it was like you were messing with their time. So I knew first off, we had to change that.
Yep.
Like, so now we've got like an industrial coffee maker. We have a TV that we play. We're huge soccer fans. So Premier League and now World Cup.
Yeah.
We have, I think we have like 25, 30 places for people to sit and talk. People can bring their beer, but it also allows for us to workshop with people who come in here that have no idea what they want. And we can walk them through the store. I think that kind of like opening up the home brewing community and just saying, hey, it's a community in the sense of we're just a group of people that anybody and everybody is welcome here.
Yeah.
But it's not just enough to say it. You've got to do things to show that it's welcoming because, again, if we had done all of the painting in the shop, we changed the lighting to be a softer light. We made things more aesthetically pleasing. But if I didn't have a friendly face behind the counter or in the shop, it wouldn't really matter.
Right.
So I think that's part of it is we've just got to make it to where people who are in or are sort of adjacent to the home brewing, so they're in the beer industry or they appreciate beer, we need to let them know that this is also an area that you are more than welcome to join in any way, shape, or form, no matter who you are or where you come from.
Absolutely. Real quick, before I ask you about HomebrewCon, what club do you support in Premier League?
Nottingham Forest, unfortunately.
And that will do it for this episode of the Home. No, if you said anybody but Liverpool, I was going to do that joke anyway. And I'm not even a fan today. So I grew up loving Steven Gerrard. And that was,
sure.
And I also loved Joe Cole, but I couldn't root for Chelsea. I think he was playing for Chelsea when I became a fan of Joe Cole. But Joe Cole.
Yeah.
Yeah, Joe Cole. Pardon me. I always get him mixed up with the rapper too. But no, best foot skills on the planet, Joe Cole, dude. It was nuts. But Steven Gerrard that was my favorite growing up. But no, Nottingham Forest. What a weird downfall. I don't want to digress into soccer too much, and I don't follow Premier League a ton anymore. But it's like last season where they qualified for Europa, or did they qualify for Champions League? Or
they did qualify for Europa, but it was sort of a protest. So, like, sidebar, real quick.
Yes.
Like Crystal Palace had qualified for Europa, but there was some ownership issues with their owner. He had owned multiple teams the other team was competing in Europa. And so there's a rule that you can't have multiple teams.
Okay. And that's how oh, you're good. No, man. I don't edit this show. Take the call.
So then Nottingham Forest protested to the league, got Europa stripped from Crystal Palace. So Crystal Palace actually played in the FA Cup, which is the lower.
Yeah.
And then Nottingham Forest got Europa. But I mean, we went through 5 coaches, somehow avoided relegation.
I know. I saw that.
Thanks to Chris Wood, who was on the New Zealand World Cup team, but he came back like a quarter of the season left. He had been injured most of the year. And I think ultimately that with going through 4 coaches in a season was why we were always battling that relegation. But, we hired a new coach yesterday, so we'll see.
Dude, nothing goes better with sports than craft beer, period. Like it's so
1,000%.
So especially in a live environment, like that's why I've not spent much time in the UK, specifically England. I've had layovers in Heathrow before, but I would love like Premier League, the atmosphere. Oh my gosh! But to be fair, Premier League doesn't even serve beer anymore. You can't have beer in the stands with you anymore, can you?
Not in the stands. You can get it at like halftime before the game. You can get it at halftime. And then after the game, right, you just go to the
they
go
don't.
to
The Brits don't think about that. They're like, instead of having someone drink responsibly, pacing it out during the game, let's let them get smashed before getting to their seats, and like that'll
well,
combat it.
I think it's funny, and I don't really know what the Premier League's going to do with this, but England just played in Atlanta, like I think it was Wednesday,
Yeah,
and they played at noon, and apparently there were this mass of just English guys just crushing beers at 7 a.m. in the parking lot of the stadium here in Atlanta, and then they go to the game. They can drink in the stadium.
yep.
And then it was made like the Braves were playing that night. And so the Braves were like, hey, keep the party rolling. All English England team fans, get like 50% off tickets or something like that.
No.
And so then there was this huge, like massive, these guys who were been drinking since 7
Oh
a.m.
my gosh.
at Truist Park to watch the Braves game. And they were absolutely ridiculous. They were doing like their normal, like English soccer chants.
Yeah.
But then replacing their favorite players from the Premier League, they were putting Braves players in the chants.
Dude, that's the best. Yeah, well, to their defense, it was like 1 p.m. their time, overseas.
Yeah, fair.
But
Yeah.
anyways,
that's true.
Yeah,
and they're just trying to combat jet lag.
That's right. Absolutely. I'm not even from over there, but if I'm drinking in the morning, I tell my wife the same thing. Babe, in Germany, it's like 1 p.m. Quit judging me. Golly, you buzzkill. But anyway, let's segue. HomebrewCon, I believe this was your first HomebrewCon for sure as a retail presence. Was it your first HomebrewCon? Have you attended a HomebrewCon just as an attendee before?
Only once, and it was a while ago. It was early on in my homebrewing career in San Diego. One of the years it was in San Diego, but yeah.
So what were your thoughts on both perspectives, if you can offer? Because you're not, most people, I will say in my anecdotal experience, I haven't met a retailer at HomebrewCon that wasn't also owned by homebrewers. So, I think in our industry, in this industry, it's very rare that you get someone who's in the space that doesn't also brew. Sometimes there was a company that was just selling RO systems and they confessed they didn't brew, but it's very rare for someone for a business to invest the money, because it's not cheap to show at a trade show, and to not also be a home brewer. But if you can offer both perspectives as just a Joe Schmo home brewer and as a business owner, what were your overview thoughts about the return of HomebrewCon and in Asheville?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think the first thing to call out that I was very appreciative of was that it was finally in the Southeast.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think this may have been the first time that it had actually been in the Southeastern United States.
Yeah, Orlando in like 03. It was like, but that was like 03, dude. Like the last time.
So, I'll be honest. Here in Georgia, we normally don't count Florida as the Southeast. So.
I love that. Yeah, I'm gonna get so much hate mail right now.
Basically, I guess Orlando can count, but like Orlando South, I don't know. It's a different. It's just a different. It's a different culture. Anyway, so it was great that it was in the Southeast. I was super excited. I'm really glad that they picked a town like Asheville. I mean, for people who are not like familiar with Asheville, I mean, I think it's one of the, if not the best beer cities in America, partly because it's not huge. It's not like a San Diego or a Seattle or, a massive city. It's really easy to get around, walkable, and there's just some absolutely killer breweries doing some amazing things. So first off, I would say that was the biggest thing. So it was interesting being on the sponsor side. I know, I mean, I've only attended one HomebrewCon, but we've entered into NHC like 10 years before we stopped doing competitions a few years ago. So I've been very familiar when it was under the BA. And from my perspective, it seemed like there was not as many sponsors. There wasn't as many opportunities for homebrewers to access information from a sponsor side.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to sit here and say that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
I think it was more intimate than it has been in the past.
Oh, yeah.
I think provided, it was a smaller space. It provided more connection and it fostered more communication with homebrewers, the sponsors, homebrewers, the speakers, which I really appreciated. It didn't seem like it was this sort of like corporate overlord type conference, right? Where, you were the home brewer, you're sort of like the plebeian, and you're like just sort of gated and told to go somewhere, and you're not really allowed to talk to the people who are like running the show. I thought that was awesome. I think the biggest takeaway for me was, we're at the store, we have a customer base that is extremely knowledgeable. We don't really have to work with them at all. But then we do have a pretty substantial customer base where like they come in and like, hey, I want to brew an IPA. And I'm like, okay, do you have a recipe? Nope. So then we're like sort of walking them through the whole thing. I was really impressed with the knowledge of every single attendee at HomebrewCon that I had the pleasure to talk to. I mean, it was a bit of a risk for us to bet so much on our booth pretty much being craft malt specific.
Oh yeah.
And like having the certificate of analysis and being super nerdy about it. It's like the opposite of what we would normally do on like our Instagram. But I felt like it was the right space. And the conversation, I was having better conversations with some of homebrewers about the malt that we were kind of highlighting with them than I would with a normal like commercial brewer at a local brewery here in Atlanta. So that was awesome. And I think just having a space to where you are sort of allowed to nerd out it's amazing. And my knowledge that now that I have, not only as a shop owner, but being a home brewer for as long as I've been, I couldn't believe that some of the conversations that I was having comparing the COAs of North Star Pills to Chesapeake Pills. Like literally had a guy pull up the COA for North Star, and then we're looking at it for Chesapeake, and we're like comparing and like talking about, okay, this is a little bit lower for Chesapeake, so this is what I would do to adjust for that to get a comparable output that I would have normally gotten from like raw North Star Pills.
Today's show is brought to you by Hopsterette.com. Grown in the esteemed Yakima Valley on the Peterball family farm, Hopsterette.com offers the widest variety of hops available online at incredibly competitive pricing. It's simple. They grow hops, they sell hops, and they ship hops straight from their family-owned farm to your doorstep. Producing the highest quality hops is Hopsterette.com's passion, and they're proud to be an independent grower in the craft beer industry. Go to Hopsterette.com right now and get what you need to make your brew day better. That's Hopsterette.com. Dude, I love the community, like the diversity of the spectrum, and I use that word on purpose because, I don't intend to troll my community, my audience, the dozens of people who are entertained. Thousands consume this, thousands consume it, but dozens are entertained, Josh. And but they, my pop and I have brewed with RO water for the last several years and not salted it at all. And I've gotten Josh, you're missing out on this. And I'm just like, I'm too dumb to know, guys. Sorry, I'm just too dumb. But now actually we've been using these pre-packaged salt things from Cellar Science, who's one of our sponsors. Shout out Cellar Science. But they
sure.
Now for me, I'm in the demographic, Josh. If it is not if it doesn't make my life extremely more convenient, I might not do it. So when like yeast in the old days of homebrewing, and I don't know, most of my audience is like my pop's age, or a lot of them are. So guys, I don't mean your time. I mean in the old days for me, where if you're doing dry yeast, a lot of the times they weren't packaged for 5-gallon recipe. It was a brick or whatever amount and you had to weigh it out and all that. When yeast manufacturers started going to, this is what you need for your 5-gallon batch. You just open it and, oh, boom, I'm on board, baby. Here we go. Because I know now I'm not measuring anything. And with dry yeast now, just sprinkle it on top. Don't have to worry about hydrating. Perfect. I'm sold. I know when we make it easier, I'm a manufacturer, like I do anything of value. when they make it easier for schmutz like me, is when I see a lot more of enthusiasm and whatnot behind, like, oh, I could get behind that. Like, I never thought to add salts to my RO water because I'm lazy and I didn't want to measure. Here's a milligram of gypsum and here's some calcium chloride. No, I couldn't care less. But a lot of people are that engineer type that will nerd out with you, and I just have to nod my head when they're talking about stuff that's way over my pay grade, where they're like, well, Joshua, the alpha acids of that hop is not an appropriate thing for a 60-minute boil. I'm like, yeah, man, you're right. You're right. Because I'm probably in the spectrum, just not that smart side of it. I'm on the like coloring by numbers side of it. But anyway, I want to get wrapping this up because I respect your time. I appreciate you doing this right before your shop is opening. The moniker "Beer Never Dies." Where did it come from? I love the branding. Like I was telling y'all at your booth, y'all's aesthetics are so great. Like they're just it's so modern, so fun. It reminds me of Austin advertisements too. It reminds me like even like Liquid Death in regards to just the how do we make something aesthetically cool and it's just sparkling water? Like y'all are like the Beer Never Dies moniker. I'll turn my hat while you're answering. But like, where did that come from? And y'all kind of lean into it. Like, explain that.
We do, yeah. So, I mean, you talked about us showing the Goonies at our booth. There's a one of like 250 Goonies poster at our shop. So there is this element where Goonies never say die. That was sort of one of the reasons. The other is, you met Caleb, super smart guy when it comes to brewing.
Yeah.
He's been in the industry for over 10 years, being like started out with me and my buddy Keith homebrewing, but then took it to be a commercial brewer. He was with a brewery here in Atlanta called Second Self. It was like right behind Georgia Tech's campus. It was like sort of my like incubator for me to really be able to have access to a lot of crazy stuff. Like the mixed culture, the culture that we use for our mixed culture Saison that we've been keeping alive for like 8 years. They unfortunately had to shut down. And when we took over the shop and we were thinking about, how can we sort of set ourselves apart? We need a tagline. We need something. Immediately went to Goonies. We're like, Goonies never say die. What could we do with there? And then we also had this idea that we sort of do now is sort of resurrecting beers that don't exist anymore. Particularly right now, it's at the local scene. So what we'll do is we'll get recipes from breweries that have shuttered that were a part of our entry into the craft beer industry, into home brewing, and we'll brew it here at the shop. We'll have, whether it's like the last time that we did it, the owners of Second Self were here with us, and we brewed in our store, and we had people come in. It was just an opportunity to talk about everybody's moments at Second Self before they closed. So that idea of we're going to resurrect this beer sort of goes into the Beer Never Dies. So we have recipes, I mean, maybe 15 or 20 different recipes that we have in-house that we can put together for people if they want a Second Self red hop rye, or they're wanting a Thai wheat, which is what most people want. It was an amazing beer. Or, they want Jekyll's, Southern Juice or whatever it may be. We can do that. And so that's part of it. And then, to your point, you hear this doom and gloom about the industry as a whole. We knew that was something that was going on when we took over the shop. And it's like, okay, not only are there very few local homebrew supply stores, but the industry of just beer overall is on a decline.
Yep.
And so we sort of like, you know what, let's accept that we can't say no to data. Data is proving that, but that doesn't mean it's not going to come back, and it's certainly not going to die. So that was part of the reason. And then, we have all of our merch is pretty much in black. Our logo is a Grim Reaper with a mash paddle, or to say a fly swatter. But that's kind of my vibe. And so that's what it sort of just made sense. And so that's kind of the reason for it.
Dude, I love it.
Our goal is to try to be in whatever role that we can be to ensure that not only beer and the industry as a whole can get back to that rise, sustainable rise, manageable rise, not, market saturation that we probably saw. But from a homebrew side of things, we want to be out in front of it. We want to be the cornerstone of the resurgence of homebrewing that we've seen in years past.
Perfect. And I did a terrible job during the intro and throughout the episode of letting people know y'all ship across the continental U.S. as far as I understand. And so let the people know where they can find more info. Check out the craft malt that y'all do offer and everything else. Like, how can people find more about the Brew Depot?
Yeah. So if anybody is on social media, we're on Instagram, the Brew Depot. Pretty easy to find us. Please give us a follow. Our website is thebrewdepot.com. Pretty simple. And if you're wanting to look at our malt selection, our hops, it's all on our top header bar of our website. Fully e-commerce platform. You can order online. We ship to all lower 48 right now. So that basically just means we don't ship to Alaska or Hawaii. And free shipping over $79.
Whoa.
So,
okay.
Your card in. And if anyone's listening to this and you were at NHC and you didn't sign up for our newsletter, send me an email at josh@thebrewdepot.com. We'll shoot you a discount code that you can use for every order for the entire year.
Dude, I just want to say this real quick too. I'm assuming the shipping thing is to compete with other online retailers, but people don't realize how big a deal that is because most normies don't ship on a regular basis. It's not a normal human activity to just, I'm going to ship these books to my friend across. Dude, ever since I've been doing recipe kits, and specifically since I took it over full time in February of this year, shipping is expensive. It is nuts how much it is, especially recipe kits. You're like, oh God, like we did the Pliny the Elder clone in March, which was great. Yeah. And I think I ended up shipping like 50 some odd recipe kits of people who had joined and or just outright bought it from patreon.com/homebrew happy hour. Shameless plug. It's my podcast. But I like the shipping because of how like the grain bill's heavy and there's like freaking a pound of hops for a 5-gallon kit. I was like, oh, my profits, which are already nothing because there's no money in recipe kits. But that's a whole different episode of the Homebrew Therapy Hour. But yeah, $79. I don't think people realize it. Like, I'm not buttering you up. That's awesome that y'all have chosen to do that, because in the Amazon culture, people, how come I can't get free shipping? And it's like, dude, oh my gosh, or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, so our thought is, our goal isn't, we came in here, the previous owner's goal was just have big sales. He was like, I don't care if I only have 2 customers, if they're big sales, that's all I care about. That's fine. What we want to do is we want to just grow our customer base. And by doing that, we grow the hobby.
Yep.
And we support home brewers in whatever way we can. So if we can get people to support local, and local, not just meaning that we're a local shop somewhere, but that we also carry local ingredients that you can't get really anywhere else.
Yep.
Shop with us, give us a shot. I think the other thing that we, really pride ourselves on is when an order comes in, we are filling it within an hour and we're shipping it out within 4 hours.
Whoa.
And it's me, it's Caleb, it's Victor, it's our other great employee, Compact, who actually had to work while we were having fun at NHC. It's us packing all of that. And we just got a crap ton of boxes and packing material, so we're ready to go.
Yeah. So go to the Brew Depot, guys. What are y'all waiting for? Go to the Brew Depot. But even better, email him, like you said. If you were at HomebrewCon and then the awards NHC and you didn't sign up for their newsletter, email josh@thebrewdepot.com and they'll get you hooked up. My friend, I appreciate your time. You got to open up the shop here soon, but hopefully at some point in the future, get you on again. I don't know if you think I've heard the rumors that HomebrewCon next year is between Kansas City and Milwaukee. If it's either one of those, y'all think you think you'd have a presence again as a sponsor or just as an attendee?
If we are paying rent to have a store, we will be sponsoring HomebrewCon.
Dude,
so, I'm locked in for the next 3 years. So with my landlord. So here we are.
I love leases. All right. Anyways, Josh, my friend, again, I appreciate your time, brother, and I really appreciate the hat. I've already had compliments from it wearing it around here. I live in a college town, and like I said, the aesthetics appeal to their like lizard brain of that looks cool. I like hat. And I'm like, yeah, guys, nothing's cooler than a 40-year-old with a backwards hat. Like if I've learned anything in my years on life. But anyways.
I mean, that is my definition of cool. I can aspire.
That's right, brother. Anyways, hopefully talk to you soon. I appreciate you. And yeah, have a great week.